I'll invite the Prime Minister once again to rise on his feet. And thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will happily withdraw my comment if the member who suggested that I was sharing a bathtub with Tom Clark stands up, takes responsibility for his...
And to please just withdraw the comment and start his question again. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw the comment about defecating.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Oral questions. Questions The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. Today, we'll vote to trigger a carbon tax election between the costly carbon tax coalition of NDP Liberals who tax your food, punish your work, double your housing cost and unleash crime and chaos, or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Why can't we bring it home today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, with the clever little performance of slogans he's memorized without any actual solutions for Canadians. He doesn't care about Canadians. He cares about his own political self-interest. If he cared about Canadians, he wouldn't have voted against dental care. He wouldn't have voted against more spaces at $10 a day childcare. He wouldn't have voted against initiatives that are growing the economy, putting more money in people's pockets. He wants a climate change election. Let's have that election in the right time where we're putting more money in the pockets of Canadians. This is not the time for that. We're going to continue to deliver for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he just said he wants a carbon tax election on his plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. If so, will he call it today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I believe this on today we will see that this House does not have confidence in the leader of the Conservative Party. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered, are continuing to deliver, reduced emissions, more money in the pockets of Canadians, and success in the fight against climate change as we create jobs and build a stronger future. We are focused on delivering for Canadians the things that actually matter, while he's focused on slogans and clapping. Mr. Speaker, we're going to focus on being there for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's concerned that we're clapping for him. He agreed to a carbon tax election on his quadrupling of the tax to 61 cents a litre, where Canadians will choose between an NDP Liberal government that has taxed their food, punished their work, doubled their housing costs, and unleashed crime and chaos in their communities, or a common-sense Conservative government to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. He's bragging that he has more politicians on his side. Isn't it really the case that in Canada, the people decide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with the Canada carbon rebate, the price on pollution puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. But we already know from his misunderstanding of carbon pricing that the Conservative leader doesn't understand math or economics. What's increasingly clear is he doesn't understand science as well. That's why I'd be happy to give him a briefing on the science of climate change. And good news on this one, it doesn't require a security clearance for it.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc announced a good faith proposal that was reasonable about topics that have already obtained the support of all parties in this House. I would like to know from the Prime Minister if he can give us his word that he will quickly consider the Bloc's proposal to benefit seniors and farmers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we've already shown many times that our priorities include help for seniors and protection of supply management. We have shown this and will continue to do so. We'll continue to work with other members of this House to deliver for seniors and to deliver for our farmers. We know that there are concerns that we can work together on, and we're going to do so because we're always here to help Quebecers and all Canadians in these difficult times.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Privatizing healthcare means telling people you either pay up or go to the back of the line. Daniel Smith is privatizing healthcare in Alberta right now, and this Prime Minister is doing nothing about it. Doug Ford is privatizing healthcare in Ontario, and the Prime Minister praises him. Why is this weak Prime Minister letting Conservatives tear down our healthcare system?
I see that the Prime Minister is rising on his feet. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we have always defended universal health care, and we will continue to do. But the member opposite has a point. In those provinces, the NDP was unable to stop Conservatives from getting elected and weakening universal health care in all those places. That is why we are going to continue to stand up for universal health care, to stand up for progressive values, and indeed, to stand up to Conservatives.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister that's cutting health care. His carbon tax will cost hospitals across this country in heat, in laundry services, in delivering medical equipment. Calculations by the Saskatchewan government show that the carbon tax will cost $175 million, equal to the loss of 1,900 nurses, all to pay the Prime Minister's greedy quadrupling carbon tax. Why won't he get his hands out of the pockets of the provinces and allow our premiers to fund health care?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families right across the country while it fights climate change, while it creates growth. Mr. Speaker, fighting climate change is about building a better future for Canadians. This summer alone, insurers are estimating that $7.7 billion in losses are being covered for that. That is something that we have to step up on right now. And the Conservative leader, who doesn't even believe climate change is real, wants to do absolutely nothing about it. That's not good for Canadians. That's not good for our economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Hospitals don't get the Canada carbon rebate. A measly little check would not replace the $175 million that Saskatchewan hospitals are going to lose to heat themselves, to power their machinery, to deliver their goods. And yet, that's what the Prime Minister imposes. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs in one province alone because of his greedy carbon tax quadrupling. Why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax and boost funds for health care?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will note that he voted against our plan to increase funding on healthcare to $200 billion over the next 10 years because he wants a two-tier system like most conservative premiers in this country. The fact is, climate change will cost everyone in health outcomes, in growth outcomes, in harm to our economy, in harm to our future. He has no plan to fight climate change. Our plan not only fights climate change, it makes emissions lower, puts more growth on the books, and puts more money in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadians, the middle class, and those working hard to join it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
More disinformation from a flailing and desperate Prime Minister clinging to power. I voted in this Parliament to increase health funding, and in the previous government voted to increase it by 70%, more than his government had. More than that, we did not impose a carbon tax on hospitals. He claims that people are going to get checks. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs because of the carbon tax in one province alone. A phony rebate check will not make the difference. Now he wants to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. How many nurses are going to lose their jobs while hospitals are stuck paying this quadrupling tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he refers to the Canada carbon rebate as a phony check. At least he recognizes that it exists, which is new from just a few months ago. The Canada carbon rebate, as defined by, investigated by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, puts more money, hundreds of dollars, back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, exactly the middle class and those working hard to join it, who need support while we fight climate change, while we reduce emissions, while we grow a stronger economy with good jobs for future generations. He has no plan for the economy, no plan for the future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
My common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But let's talk about education. The carbon tax will cost Saskatchewan schools $204 million. That's the equivalent of approximately 2,000 teachers losing their jobs, all to pay tax to heat schools in cold Saskatchewan winters. Why is the Prime Minister forcing provinces to cut teachers and education to pay for his greedy quadrupling carbon tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He goes once again with his little performances, Mr. Speaker, the little rhymes and slogans. The reality facing Canadians right across the country, including in Saskatchewan, is wildfires, droughts, floods, issues that are being increased because of the impacts of climate change. And if we do not continue to take ambitious action, future generations will pay dearly for inaction by governments like the government in Saskatchewan that he wants to emulate. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we put more money in people's pockets while fighting climate change, and we're going to keep doing that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, screaming and hollering will not distract from the very serious question I asked. Can he tell us how many nurses and how many teachers will lose their jobs because his greedy carbon tax quadrupling will drive up costs to heat schools and hospitals? How many?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, teachers and nurses across the country are terrified of conservative policies that cut programs, that cut services, that cut supports for the most vulnerable, for those who work hard to care for other Canadians, whether it's their opposition to pharmacare, which would be delivering free insulin and free prescription contraceptives, whether it's investing in a school food program going to help 400,000 kids with more food right across the country. That leader has opposed the things that nurses and teachers care most about. So let's not take any lessons from that guy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He goes from screaming and waving his arms around radically when I mention the carbon tax to bragging about a program that doesn't even exist. His multi-million-dollar school food program hasn't served a single ham sandwich, a single little bowl of Kraft dinner, not one meal to one child. It exists to feed bureaucracy in Ottawa, not kids in schools. So once again, put aside the grand dramatic performances and answer the question: how many doctors, nurses, and teachers will lose their jobs because of the quadrupling carbon tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think it'd be instructive to look at how many doctors and teachers have lost their jobs because of Conservative governments over the past number of decades, and that's exactly what this leader is proposing once again. I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, because I once had a job as a teacher, and I was proud of serving kids every day. I haven't just been in this House for 20 years like the Leader of the Opposition.
Colleagues. The Honourable Prime Minister, 15 seconds left on the clock.
Yes, I was proud to be a school teacher, Mr. Speaker, because it was a way of having a positive impact on the lives of thousands of kids over the course of my career. And I'm proud to bring their voices here into this House and continue to put forward how we support our kids, how we support the vulnerable, as opposed to the cuts that they propose.
That's right.
2015, New York Times, headline: Life in Canada, home of the world's most affluent middle class. How things have changed after 9 years of NDP Liberals. The economy today, per capita, is actually smaller than it was 10 years ago. Per capita income has dropped more in Canada than any other G7 country since the year before COVID. The gap between U.S. GDP per capita and Canadian is now 50%, the biggest gap in 100 years. Will the Prime Minister recognize that taxing, punishing, and attacking our businesses is losing us jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What the Leader of the Opposition refuses to accept is that cuts to services and programs that Canadians are relying on is not going to grow the economy, is not going to help anyone through. We have the strongest balance sheet in the G7 right now, the lowest deficit, the lowest debt to GDP ratio. Companies from around the world are investing in Canada because they believe in Canadians. We are wanting to set that strong fiscal position in service of Canadians who are hurting right now. We want to invest more in dental, more in supports, more in growth and jobs, and he wants to cut at this particular time.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canada has the worst mortgage debt, has had the worst housing inflation in the G7, and now has the worst GDP per capita change since the Great Depression, and the worst by far in the G7. Those are the devastating statistics that result in very real human costs. That's the reason we have 1,400 homeless encampments in one province alone and 2 million people lined up at food banks. Won't he realize that doubling housing costs and taxing people's food has very real human costs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when that individual was Harper's failed housing minister, he built 6 affordable homes across the entire country only. He did not help with the investments that Canadians needed. And his so-called housing plan that he talks about now, which is, again, more performance than substance, lots of slogans, no actual solutions, is not going to deliver for Canadians either. We're doing what he didn't do, which is work with housing advocates, work with municipalities, work with provinces, and deliver the homes Canadians need.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
when I was housing minister, rent and mortgage payments were half of what they are now, and there were almost 200,000 of those affordable homes built right across Canada. Now, this Prime Minister wants to bring in a massive tax on home builders with hikes to capital gains. Now, the most preeminent economist in Canada, Jack Mintz, reveals that would cost our economy 400,000 jobs and $90 billion. Where are those 400,000 unemployed Canadians going to be able to get the food and the money to pay their mortgages?
Before the Right Honourable Prime Minister takes the floor, I'd like to remind all members to please not take the floor when they're not recognized by the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is instrumentalizing Canadians who are suffering right now to try and score cheap political points. What he is not offering is any sort of solution for Canadians. We put forward the most ambitious housing plan in decades because we know that working with municipalities, working with provinces, working with nonprofit agencies and charitable foundations is a way of delivering homes. I was just in Vancouver speaking to a young student who got into an apartment because of partnerships that this government set up. These are things that make a real difference in people's lives, but he doesn't care.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I will comment on one spectacular social housing project of his, and that is the brand new lavish apartment that he bought his friend, the new Consul General to New York. $9 million for his friend Tom Clark to have stunning powder room finished in jewel onyx, crystallo gold quartzite countertops, a handcrafted copper soaking tub, custom bronze bathroom fixtures, $5,000 coffee machine. Did the Prime Minister go and inspect this palace in the sky on his recent trip to New York?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, engaging with international leaders on fighting climate change, on solving global crises, on standing up unequivocally for Ukraine.
Colleagues, just as I said before, just as I said earlier, I would ask all members to please not take the floor unless they're recognized by the Speaker so that we can hear the questions and we can hear the answers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, don't worry, on this side of the House, we're used to casual homophobic comments from the other side of the House. Mr. Speaker, what is it about the...
Colleagues, I heard comments that because it was not on microphone, I chose not to get up. I would ask, nonetheless, that we all treat each other with the presumption of honor and respect. And I'll ask the Prime Minister to please withdraw that comment and to start his comment again under the colleagues. Colleagues, I heard a comment, as I said, which I could not stand up because I did not know who said it. But we should be. But colleagues, I don't appreciate when we would tar the entire members with that concern. And I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, to withdraw that comment, start his question again, and let us presume the better natures of all members of Parliament here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, standing up to bullies requires us to call them out on their crap sometimes, and that's what I will do.
I'll invite the Prime Minister once again to rise on his feet. And thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will happily withdraw my comment if the member who suggested that I was sharing a bathtub with Tom Clark stands up, takes responsibility for his...
As I had indicated to all colleagues here, I was not able to hear or track the source of that statement. And I'm just asking the Prime Minister to be the better person and to please just withdraw the comment and start his question again. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw the comment about defecating. I certainly, using the word crap, I shouldn't use that. I know crap is unparliamentary, but I will also, Mr. Speaker, when someone says something that is clearly homophobic, not them, I'm not accusing them of homophobia, I'm saying they made a homophobic...
I appreciate the Prime Minister withdrawing his comment, and the Chair accepts him withdrawing that comment. But as the Speaker had indicated, sometimes in this chair, and for those who have occupied this chair or who will occupy this chair will understand, it is a very difficult decision day to day. I heard a comment, I did not know who said it, and the Speaker chose, for the reputation of this House, for us to move on from that comment. I asked the Prime Minister to withdraw the comment. I appreciate you withdrawing the comment. The Prime Minister, please respond to the question that was asked by
Mr. Speaker, I know the very idea of standing up for Canada's rights and values on the world stage makes the Leader of the Opposition's skin crawl. What is it exactly? Is it standing up to fight climate change? Is it standing up for women's rights? Is it standing up for democracy rights and freedom of the press? Whatever it is, he sure doesn't like it when Canada stands proudly on the world stage because he wants everyone to think that Canada is broken. Well, Canada's not broken. Canada's the best country in the world, but we're going to make it even better.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister says the way he stands up for Canada is by buying a $9 million mansion in the sky for his crony Tom Clark. Well, he goes on Broadway late-night shows to say that they want to applaud that he said that it was a small issue that the Americans had illegally taken $9 billion of our softwood money and cost tens of thousands of jobs. Conservatives got a deal on this in 80 days after taking offices. He's had 9 years and 3 presidents. Why does he keep letting the Americans walk all over him?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was glad to have the chance to speak directly to millions of Americans in this crucial moment and make the argument directly to them that we've been making to policymakers that U.S. tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber hurts American citizens and consumers. And when I go on American television, I make sure to talk up Canada, unlike the member for Calgary Nose Hill who talked down Canada to Tucker Carlson, unlike the member from Thornhill that went on Fox News to talk down Canada. I will always stand up for Canada proudly.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Only he didn't stand up. He backed down. Yes. He's been backing down for 9 years, during which time 3 presidents have imposed illegal tariffs that Conservatives had originally got taken off. And recently, Biden doubled those tariffs, causing 500 mill workers to lose their jobs in British Columbia. They must have been watching that show, seeing the Prime Minister say that their unemployment and their now poverty was a, quote, small issue. Why is it that he thinks he's such a big shot that the jobs of working people are a small issue?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that the Leader of the Opposition really didn't like that I went down to New York City to talk directly to Americans. Perhaps he would have been happier if I accepted an all-expenses-paid trip perhaps down to Florida to appear at an anti-abortion church. I know he would have been all right with that because that's what he allows of his own members.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Falsehoods will not change the reality. His record is this. Common sense Conservatives got a softwood deal that reimbursed $4 billion of tariffs the Americans had collected within 80 days of taking office last time. Those tariffs were slapped back on under this Prime Minister, and he's capitulated ever since, not collecting $1 of the tariffs back. In fact, President Biden has now doubled those tariffs. He capitulated on Buy America, capitulated on softwood, capitulated on the Keystone Pipeline. When can we have a government that stops capitulating and starts standing up for Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's the deepest of ironies that during the existential renegotiations of NAFTA, it is the Conservative Party's position that we needed to capitulate to the United States and to Donald Trump. That is not what we did. We stood firm. We protected steel workers. We protected auto workers. We protected agricultural workers and our dairy farmers. We continued to stand up to Americans while we protect jobs in this country, while they were saying, ooh, it's too important. You need to give in to the United States. We didn't. We stood strong. We came out of that with a win-win right across the board.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, il a capitulé.
He signed a deal that kept
tariffs on softwood. Tariffs which the Conservatives had previously managed to get rid of. He caved in on Buy America, which discriminates against our companies. He caved in on Keystone, and now Canadians are investing $400 million more in the U.S. than the opposite way. Why has he caved in and let down our construction and forestry workers?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you should be very careful about reminding people what things were like under Harper when he was on the governing side. Canadians remember very clearly what it was like under that government, which didn't invest in people, which cut back on services, on our armed forces, on police and childcare. They cut all the programs that Canadians depend on and didn't create the growth that Canadians need. We will continue to invest in Canadians and stand up for our steel and aluminum workers. We will be there to defend jobs in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I'm scratching my head here. I'm wondering how we might not get there, because everyone agrees with the Bloc's bills. So I imagine everyone will continue to support them. The NDP, the Conservatives, the Liberals, all supported our bills. So I wonder if the government will get it in gear, because time is running out for farmers in Quebec, and leaders of all parties have agreed. So in order to get there by the end of October, something's got to give. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to know that the Bloc may be there to support our dental care program for seniors, because that's helping a lot of seniors. We're talking about millions of Canadians, including Quebecers, who've had access to dental services when the Bloc was against the program, but we managed to get it delivered all the same for thousands of people, and we will be there. We will still be there to help seniors with dental care and to invest in their future with housing, and we will be there to deliver the necessary services. Now, a member for Belleuil-Chambly. With that kind of logic, that's how the Liberal government has got to the edge of the precipice. So they should perhaps change their approach a little bit, maybe a little less sparring and a bit more substance. So he says he agrees with being there for seniors and protecting supply management. Everyone agrees. There's been unanimous support. So we need those two bills to get through. Are we going to move forward on this? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the direction of this government has always been to move forward, moving forward on investments for our seniors, investments for jobs, for the next generations, moving forward on the fight against climate change and economic growth at the same time. We will be there to work constructively with everyone who wants to deliver the goods for Canadians here in this place. And I'm glad that we're going to continue our constructive and productive conversations with the Bloc Québécois. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He proposes to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre on seniors, small businesses and single moms. The Prime Minister spent his summer in a frenzy of high carbon, high taxing, high flying hypocrisy. Newly released data show that he went 92,000 kilometers. In flights on average every 2 days, he went 300,000 liters of jet fuel. Why is it that he punishes working class Canadians with his quadrupling carbon tax when he flies around burning more and more jet fuel?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps if the Leader of the Opposition had actually met with Canadians or talked with media or been out there across the country over the course of the summer, he would have heard the fact that Canadians need support from government programs and services. Canadians want to see $10 a day childcare. Canadians want to see support on dental care. Canadians want to see a national school food program. These are all things that he wants to cut because that's all he's offering Canadians. That shows me he wasn't listening to Canadians he was talking to. He was just making sure he could use them to advance his own political aims. We're offering salute.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So there you have it. He was charging Canadians for his 92,000 kilometers of flights so that he could go around repeating the promises that he's broken nationwide while taxing them. And his plan is to hike that tax to 61 cents a litre. Mr. Speaker, he emitted more carbon than 114 Canadians combined this summer. Why does the Prime Minister drive people into poverty, children into hunger, with promises he breaks and hypocrisy that he cannot reconcile?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, now Canadians know, Mr. Speaker, in the unfortunate event that that guy ever ends up Prime Minister, he's going to stay at home in his basement on YouTube the whole time instead of meeting with Canadians.
Yeah, that's